Hey everybody and welcome to the video. As you can see, I have further made some more art. It's because I can't really help myself and I'm still finding how I want to represent the channel. Anyways, let's begin with the video. Magladroth the Void Dragon is one of the ancient Catan, godlike star vampires born over 65 million years ago and worshipped by the Necrons who later became the Necrons. It is widely regarded as the greatest and most terrible of all of the Catan, embodying the materium, which means our material universe, its abstract concepts of creation and destruction, from which all technology, science, engineering, and physical knowledge across space and time originate. In the mythology of Eldar, or as Games Workshop likes to call them now, the Eldari, it is known as the Void Dragon, a harbinger of oblivion, wanton destruction, and devastation. I have my own theory about the Void Dragon so far that I have not really heard anybody else talk about it in the Warhammer community, and that means that either I like to think I've stumbled upon something great, or maybe it's just so far-fetched that it makes no sense and nobody wants to talk about it. I will leave that for you to decide. The Catan emerged, or in some part was part of the initial formation of the universe, coalescing from the churning masses of unimaginable forces, vast seas of plasma, solar flares, swirling gases, and gravitational waves crashing, an enormous amount of unbound energy. They were not beings as we would understand it, but would be considered more akin to barely sentient, incorporeal entities of pure energy. Fundamental constants woven into the fabric of reality, basically manifestations of how our universe operates. Sort of think like if the idea of heat or cold would both exist in our universe as a mechanic, but that mechanic itself expresses itself through a very large creature or entity. Described as the first self-aware entities to arise from these cosmic maelstroms of creation, and in order to truly understand how old some of these guys are, think about this: the Catan, or the Star Gods, are so old that they predate the idea of matter cooling and forming into planets, and they do this by several eons. Anyways, sorry. In their primordial phase, the Catan existed as monstrous parasites, drifting through the newly born cosmos and consuming life-giving energies of stars, feeding on solar flares, magnetic storms, and the raw plasma output of bloated red giants and young suns. These processes would shorten the lifespan of these stars by uncounted millennia, which, as a part of the history, would affect the history of the Necrons quite a bit, but we will touch upon that later. The lack of physical bodies kept them from having any sort of coherent thought or coherent idea of their own existence, and one would say that they would exist based on instinct, or whatever you would call it, as attributing instinct to a semi-sentient mechanic of the universe is a very human thing to do, and these things are by no means human or have any sort of human understanding. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, these guys are basically representing, for example, thermodynamics, but on a cosmic scale. These Star Gods are linked to the inherent physical mechanics of our universe, and a little theory of mine is that even in this proto-stage, the Catan would feed on the universe in accordance with each of their aspects, meaning that one Catan would feed on the heat output of stars, while another would drain different types of radiation from celestial bodies, or even nullify and gain sustenance from gravity itself. Their powers at this stage were innate and allowed them to manipulate the universe on a fundamental level, but all just to facilitate their continued existence, with no malice, ambition, or awareness of other life. This would completely change during the Necrontyr desperate existence, scattered to the Halo stars after being repeatedly defeated by the Old Ones, which is a whole other video. This race has always been plagued by short lives due to fundamental damage to their DNA, due to their irradiated star. Coincidentally, one that was being drained by one of these star gods. Necrons possessed an amazing level of technology and knowledge of the cosmos, which allowed them to eventually detect the presence of a star god near a dying red sun. Under the leadership of the Silent King, they made contact with this entity, revering them as godlike weapons to be used against the Old Ones, but they realized that in the Star God's current state, they were less than useful, and as such they used their technology to make bodies from a unique metal called necrodermis, which created bodies for the Star Gods to inhabit. There are ideas that the forms of the Catan were based on ancient gods of the Necrontyr, but I like the idea more that each star god would instinctually shape their physical bodies inherent to its nature. This would, for the Catan, be akin to a second awakening, as this was the first time in their existence that they were able to center their thoughts and energies. Just imagine, it must have been like being sleepwalking for your entire life and then suddenly awakening with reality-bending powers. I will be making another video going into details about this bit of history, as there are many layers to it, but I wish to steer us back onto track with talking about a specific Catan, the Void Dragon Makladroth, the Eater of Knowledge. During the War in Heaven, Makladroth's powers would manifest as a swirling cloud of dark light and the creation of celestial technology which would rival or surpass anything created by the Old Ones. Eldari legends talk about how the Talisman of Vol, basically enormous psychic Death Stars powered by the souls of Farseers, were used to hurt and shatter parts of this physical god. However, unlike many Catan, the Void Dragon is the star god who have been shattered the least, and this would have many consequences for the setting. Among the Catan, the Void Dragon excelled in technology, creating and harnessing a material known as Noctilith or Blackstone, allowing for the nullification of psychic powers and the powers of the warp, which were antithetical to the star gods. Just a side tangent, there is an entire storyline where humanity discovers Blackstone pylons throughout the universe, which affect the warp in many different ways, and famously a large presence of these pylons on the planet of Cadia is the reason why this planet can withstand or could withstand the presence of the Eye of Terror. Before going on to my theory about the role of the Void Dragon in regards to the designs of the Emperor and the unintended results, I would like to paint you a picture of what it would like to be, would be like to face a Catan in combat. So, just a few examples from both Eldari legends, lore, and the tabletop. Here are a few things that you would face in combat with these terrible creatures. Extinguishing stars. By feeding on stellar cores, a Catan would extinguish suns, plunging entire sectors into darkness and starving any of the Old One's allies of light and energy and any sort of solar navigation. Another thing that they would be able to do is summoning black holes by manifesting artificial singularities which would devour space around it and trapping their enemies in inescapable gravitational wells. One of my personal favorite is entropic assaults, where basically a Catan would nullify the microgravity keeping atoms together, effectively disintegrating anything in existence, as anything is made up of atoms, and if you just remove the thing that keeps atoms together, well, anything goes poof. Anyways, there's also the famous, which is also a tabletop thing, mass consume life, which is where the Catan just opens up its maw and just sucks in the souls of anything living and anything anything nearby. Basically, facing any level of Catan or Catan shard would be the worst time ever. Anyway, time to talk about the Dragon of Mars. Deep beneath the red dunes of Mars itself lies something called the Noctilith Labyrinth. Get it? Noctilith that we mentioned before as being black stone. Where within slumbers a major shard of the Void Dragon, often referred to as the Dragon of Mars. While this is not directly confirmed by GW, the Dragon of Mars is described as being an immense creature with eyes blazing with malignant fire, silvery scales harder than steel rippling like liquid mercury, and a breast aglow with the light of devoured stars. To me, this more or less confirms that this is a shard of Makladroth. A guardian of this labyrinth has been placed here by the Emperor himself, and confirms that through the dreams of the dragon seeping out, that it was placed there after a prehistoric duel on Terra, which lead to it being sealed in a gold adamantium sarcophagus bound by antique silvery machinery and energy beams. This is another point to it being a Catan shard, as it is established that the most effective weapon against these star gods are psychic powers. And the Emperor, after all, is the strongest psyker ever produced by mankind. These memories depict the Emperor as a gold-armored knight on a black stallion, wielding a lance of pure silver, charging the beast with an eagle banner flying behind him. The duel will burn out and destroy the entire countryside, until the Emperor pierces a weak spot, thrusting his war sword into the dragon's left wing near Cyrene, or what in our world would be ancient Libya. Either unable or unwilling to fully destroy it, the Emperor bound or exploited it, intending it to use its subconscious dreams to inspire the techno-barbarians of Mars, birthing and forming the Mechanicum's machine cults. Its presence on Mars has profoundly shaped the Adeptus Mechanicus, with many tech priests, at least to my opinion, unknowingly venerating it as the Omnisire or machine god. There are even something on Mars called the Cult of the Dragon, which more or less directly venerates it. And here comes my little theory about the Void Dragon, the state of the universe, and why the machine worshippers of Mars are the way that they are. The star god Makladroth's domain is that of creation and destruction in symbiosis. This is to refine into technology, as essentially all machines works this way, fuel being turned into energy, which is then turned into actions which result in different things. Essentially, this Catan is the physical manifestation of knowledge and the refinement of the universe throughout the mechanical and physical processes. Its dreams and influence makes the inhabitants of Mars smarter and adept with technology as intended by the Emperor. However, there is an unforeseen and malignancy in this process. Makladroth has been described by the Eldar as the eater of knowledge in its shattered state, and I believe that this shattering of the star god is the reason why the universe of 40k is inherently a setting in which knowledge degrades. Yes, a lot of this degradation is due to mortal influence and stupidity, but the very instinct or concept would also be enhanced by the degradation of Makladroth. Furthermore, this Catan was the one who made the concept for biotransference, where the Necrontyr became the Necrons by giving up their physical bodies and souls, and the Mechanicus keeps on chanting on repeat, "The flesh is weak," seeking to rid themselves of their bodies and embody the pure thought of the machine. So, let me know what you think of this theory, and I'll see you in the next video.